my name is Laurrellive, and this is how I edit a simple YouTube short with things like zooms, cuts, automatic captions, and sound effects. I'm gonna have some quick tips at the end, but for now, let's jump into editing. Okay, now we are in Premiere Pro, and I've got my whole clip. You're gonna wanna start with your clip with no cuts in it, and you're gonna wanna go to Sequence Settings and flip your aspect ratio so that instead of a horizontal video, you have a vertical video for shorts. And then you're going to adjust your settings in the effect panel so that you are zoomed in, you know, you're at kind of what you want to be your default for the entire short. And that's going to give you consistency after you've cut it up more and, you know, you're doing zooms and stuff. So it all kind of comes back to the same thing. I also like to add a transform effect on top of my clip while it's still whole. Set the shutter angle to 360 degrees, and that's what's going to give you a zoom motion blur effect. Now I start making some basic cuts, and then after I'm done making my cuts, I'm going to go to the beginning of the video and go 4 keyframes in, and then you're going to set down 2 keyframes at your default position, and then go back to the beginning and zoom out, and that's gonna give you this little zoom at the very beginning of your video. That's also how you can do zooms anywhere else. Then I'm adding in my sound effects, so I'll try to link in the description kind of the folder of sound effects that I use. I downloaded a folder from someone else, and I also have a lot of my own sound effects that I just get off of YouTube. As well as background music. I'll put some of my favorite free background music people here. They're all free, just make sure you credit them in the description of your videos. And now I'm going through making some more cuts and adding sound effects, and this is how I make a basic zoom. So you set down keyframes where you want it to start, and then you go, I usually like to go 3 or 4 frames ahead, 100%. And then you zoom in. And if you're doing that in the transform panel where you already have your 360 degree shutter angle, it is going to automatically have that motion blur, which I feel like kind of adds some little fanciness to it, you know? Now I'm starting with my graphics, so I'm using keyframes to make basic zooms on my graphics just like I did earlier with my video. A little pro tip I have for graphics is if your graphic is going to be on the screen for longer than 2 seconds, I like to make it zoom in at the beginning, and then I go to the very end of my graphic and make it zoom a little more so it has a little bit of movement, a little more interest. Now, once you're done with your graphics, you're going to go to the text panel, transcript, go to the 3 dots and click generate static transcript. That is going to make it so that your transcript is only what's on your sequence right now and not transcribing your entire like source clip. And then it's going to give you these automatic little caption thingies. Go through and edit them. The punctuation is always weird. It's always got problems. So make sure that they look good before you move on to the next step, which is you click the 3 dots and you create captions. Make sure you customize your caption preferences. I like to do 13 character length, about 1 second minimum duration, and make sure you click single line so you're not making a double line caption. And then it's gonna load in on a special caption track, and you're gonna wanna go through and make all of your edits. Make all of your edits now before we move on to the next step, because it gets a lot more difficult after we've animated them. So once you're satisfied, select all of your captions like this, and then go to graphics and titles and select upgrade caption to graphic, and that's what's gonna make it into something that you can edit and make look cute. So I go ahead and select all of my captions once again, and I go to Essential Graphics and start changing my font. And so I like to do this. I'm just doing my basic setup, but you can customize however you want with colors and different font styles or whatever. To make a double stroke, which I think looks very nice, you click the little plus button next to the stroke tab, and that will give you another one. Pro tip, you can use the color picker anywhere on your screen, so you can just color pick the other color you used earlier. Also, make sure to turn down the shadow because the captions automatically come with the shadow. I personally don't like the shadow. So now I'm just selecting one of my captions and I'm going to the effect controls panel and going to edit the positioning of my caption. I like to use the sliders because it is automatically centered, so I don't like to mess with anything but the vertical placement on the short. And then I skip ahead 4 keyframes and set down 2 keyframes, and then I go back to the beginning, and that's when I start zooming out my caption. I like to have the movement be pretty minimal, but you can do whatever. I'm kind of giving an example of what not to do right now. So you see how where I'm skipping ahead, it almost looks like my caption is coming up into the final caption. You want to make sure that when you review it, it looks like it's just getting bigger. It doesn't look like it's moving up or down into it. And then I select the vector motion tab, I copy it, and I paste it onto the rest of my captions. And then I'm done. And there you have it. That's how I edit a basic YouTube short. I hope that it wasn't too fast, but I feel like there's a lot to cover and everything varies between what kind of short you're trying to make. So I wanted to give a quick overview. Feel free to ask me anything if you have any questions. And now I have just a few quick tips. Okay, rapid fire. First, have a good hook. If your viewer is not engaged within the first 5 seconds, likelihood is they're not gonna stay. Secondly, if you're doing a short that involves a game, or if you're going back and forth between yourself and something else, I personally think that the ones where you split the screen or you're in a little bubble, they divide the viewer attention and they don't look as good, in my opinion. So I prefer switching between full screen game and full screen model. It also adds zooms and effects in there, like automatically, so that will keep viewer retention. Title is about 50% of your battle, 50% of the success of your short depends on the title. So if you get about an hour after you've posted the short, look at your analytics, see if it's performing well. If it's not, change the title. Sometimes it helps. Also make sure you use hashtags and, you know, have a good catchy title. Consistency is very important, especially for the YouTube algorithm. I like to post every other day. If you can, I would say post at least 2 to 3 times a week. The hardest part for me when I'm editing is not actually the editing, it is finding something to edit, finding a funny moment in my streams that I remember. So one thing that's helped me so much is having I use a notes app on my phone. You can use a physical pen and paper on your desk, whatever works for you. After, you know, something funny happens on stream, like literally while I am streaming, I will write down something to remember that moment by so that I can come back later and clip it. You can also put the timestamp if you have time. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope that, you know, this is helpful to some people, and go make some shorts!